Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. And before we begin, my, 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 where is my land acknowledgement? Do I have it? Before we begin, we acknowledge that we're in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Huron-Robinson Treaty areas. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land. As we've learned from our First Nations partners, it's important to stress our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We look to each other and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. As settlers on this land, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of people who've taken care of this land for thousands of years. So we have a closed agenda addendum added today. With that change, could I have approval of the agenda? Thank you. And is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? No? I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on July 21st, 2025 as circulated. I have a mover. Okay. And all in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matter. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2025-0005-S, which is for housekeeping and backyard hens. Could I have a mover to put it on the table? Ted and Terry. All in favor? Thank you. Council will now hold a public meeting for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to passing a zoning bylaw amendment. Anyone wishing to receive notice of a decision or notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide your full name and address to the clerk. No one other than the prescribed persons may appeal an application under the provisions of the Planning Act. If they do not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin prior to the decision of Council, then the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2025-0005-S is to amend the zoning bylaw for minor housekeeping and technical matters, as well as to consider permitting backyard hens. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting on the Township of Seguin's website and by email and regular mail on July 16th, 2025. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? I don't see anybody. Has anyone registered to speak to this application by electronic participation?
No one has registered to speak to this application by electronic participation.
Does council have any questions? Councillor Bazinski.
Just out of curiosity, why is it just hens and not chickens?
Taylor, yeah, go ahead.
Through your worship, no real reason. I think it's to try to specify that roosters are not welcome.
You're discriminating against roosters?
Unfortunately, yes, they're the loud, obnoxious ones.
Councillor Getty.
Most men are. Just a A question, Taylor, for the permitted on designations, and we have a minimum 60 meters away from a water body. Would that include a large shoreline residential property as well, as long as it's maintained outside of that 60-meter exemption? I didn't see that in the bylaw.
Sorry, is this in regards to one of the proposed changes? I just want to make sure I'm following the correct part.
Sorry.
Or is this the backyard hens?
So in regards to backyard hens, the following new sections of section 4.1.13 and 14.
Yeah.
A backyard hen enclosure shall be,
Oh, yes, I see.
sorry, A says permitted on R1, R2, RU, and RR zones, but doesn't show shoreline residential. But we maintain in point J, it shall be a minimum of 60 meters away from any water body. So if
Yes.
we have a large shoreline residential, would it not be able to be included in that as well? As long as it's outside of the 60 meters?
No, it would not be. So the first test it has to satisfy is being in one of those residential zones. The reason the 60-meter setback was included is you can get some back lots which do get a little bit closer than 60 meters to the water. So we're just trying to say, mainly due to the waste, that they can't be within 60 meters. So both tests have to be satisfied essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're passing the bylaw for the backyard hens today. We're being asked to do that today, right? Now
Just a public meeting today.
it's just the public meeting, so we're not gonna, we have 30 days, right?
Yeah, is the whole bylaw being presented for public information today.
Just public information. Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Council will now close the public meeting and return to the regular meeting. Tangled up. I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matter is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Could I have a motion? Again. Seconder? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, we move on to delegations. And we have a request from Mr. Thurner that I think it's quite clearly laid out, but would you like to speak to it? Okay, please spell out your name and your address, and you need to push the little button so the green light comes on so the people online can hear you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Willie Thurner. My address is 47 Morningside Drive in Seguin Township on Star Lake. And I'm just here today to talk about potentially having a part of our road taken over by the city and maintained by the township. So just quickly, I'll give you a little bit of background for the, Ted Collins is our councillor, but just to update everyone else. So in 1970, they subdivided all the land on Star Lake, and we have now 55 cottages on the lake, and I'm the president of the Star Lake Woods Cottage Association. So we've been maintaining the road. It's a private road since 1970. So we've been maintaining it for 50 years. Then in 1977, we started up the Star Lake Woods Association. So we have a website, which Jason has seen before. We have our constitution is on the website. And so we're quite an organized group of cottagers. So presently we have 55 cottagers in our little association. Of those, we pay $300 a year to maintain the road in the summertime. And then we also have to maintain the road in the wintertime. So for the last 55 years, we've put in approximately $650,000 into the road to keep it open for all the cottagers who live there, okay? Then in the wintertime, of the 55 cottagers, we have 3 people who live there full-time. And then we have an additional 25 cottages who come up 2 to 3 times a month in the wintertime. So there's a fair bit of use going on in the road right now. So of the 55 cottagers, approximately 28 of those cottagers have either torn down the existing buildings, have built bigger ones, or have done major renovations. So there's been a lot of use on the road so far for the last 55 years. Okay. Now, on top of all this, we also water test the lake at a cost to us, which is $1,000 a year. I know the city and the township test the lake, but we do a different one that's a little bit more enhanced. So we do that. We're also involved with the Quiet Lakes Authority. We give donations to that. We have a yearbook. So in the last 5 years, the city of Seguin has donated 4 out of the 5 years for ads in our yearbook to help bring down the cost of the road. Okay. So you can see that we're well ingrained in the community. So then 2 years ago, we asked Ted Collins, and you may remember this, and I'm not sure, we asked you to come to our AGM about talking about the road. So at the time, you seemed very positive at the time and everything, but the problem was we did not own the road. The road was still owned by a lady named Nancy Flood, who originally had subdivided all the land. Right, yeah, I understand. So at the time, I found all this out. We had to hire a lawyer in town, a local lawyer named Larry Douglas, to do all the research on the road. So Nancy Flood at the time did a thing that was called a checkerboard pattern to sort of circumvent the bylaws at the time back in the 70s. And so part of the road is owned by Nancy Flood, and the other part of the road is owned by a guy named Peter Brown, who happened to be her lawyer at the time. So anyways, we hired Larry 2 years ago. It's taken 2 years for me to finally get to this podium to hunt down all the beneficiaries. Nancy Flood has passed away. Peter Brown has passed away. So then, then the court lost our all our files. So we had to resubmit everything. Then the judge who was working in Perry Sound was here just temporarily. She has now gone back to Sudbury. So anyways, in all of this process, she has awarded us the road, Star Lake Woods Road, the road that we're talking about, the main part. She did not grant us Morningside Drive yet because she wanted us to do some more work on Peter Brown. So we're in the process of doing that. We sent her some new stuff, so we're just waiting to hear back on the Morningside part. It doesn't really affect today's meeting because it's just the Star Lake Woods stuff. That's cost us another additional $6,000 just in lawyer fees to try to get this straightened out. So Larry has more or less said, we're actually cleaning this mess up, he said, really, by getting this all done. So I've been dealing a little bit with Tom McLeod, who is the director of roads or whatever. And he's more or less has said that the road is almost up to standards of the city standards, of the township standards. So what I'm asking today, please, is if you could give us the green light or the go ahead to maybe ask Tom then to do the formal assessment of the road, to see what needs to be done to get it up to the standards. I'm not sure, Mayor, if you remember all this in the meeting. Yeah, okay. And then so that you could just take over that portion, which would help us. Because now the road is getting, you are one of the fastest growing communities in the province. I understand all this. So now we've got Cogeco trucks up and down the road, Bell trucks, propane trucks, hardware trucks. So everything is, there's a lot of use and it's becoming very expensive for us. So we're hoping now if the township can maybe help us out a bit here, just on that main section, to try to alleviate some of the financial burden of the 55 people who are there. So that's basically where we're at today. So
Thank you for the history lesson. And
Yes.
I know it's confusing and I know the roads are getting a lot more use and
Yeah.
here we are, one of the fastest growing municipalities without even trying. So who
Right.
knows what happens when we do start to try. So I'll open it up for questions from council.
Sure.
But the next step out of today would be for us as a council to refer it back to staff for a full report. But let's take a couple questions.
Sure.
Councillor Adams.
How long is the road? How far in does it go?
Oh, well, I would say it's probably about a kilometer, would you say, Ted? Like, yeah, I would say roughly a kilometer. It's a 2-lane road coming in. And then just, Mr. Adams, it comes in as a double lane road
Yes,
for about a kilometer and then it splits. It splits off to Morningside Drive, which is a single lane,
Mhm.
and then it splits off to Star Lake Woods, which is a single lane also. So you would only be taking over the double lane portion from Turtle Lake Road to the split, I call it, or the Y, whatever you want to call it.
There's nothing on that part of the road, is there?
There's nothing on there. Everett, I'm not sure if you guys know Everett Jacklin. He's been maintaining the road for us for 55 years. So he has what is it, Ted? A sand pit, I guess, on one side of the road. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bazinski, and I see Tom on screen as well to answer questions.
So just a question, is it then, you would come off the municipally maintained road onto the two-lane road without a break? So it would be just a question of the municipality extending snow plowing in the winter and whatever they'd need to do in the summertime.
Correct. Yeah.
No break between the municipal area.
Exactly what you're saying is correct. You would come off
Okay.
Turtle Lake, which is a municipally maintained road. You would turn onto Star Lake Woods Road, which we're hoping would then get taken over. And then, Tom, there would be a turnaround at the Y, which is I believe Tom has already looked at it. I think it's wide enough for the truck or the plows and the graders to turn around, and then they would just come back out. Correct. There's no breakage there.
And are there any bridges or culverts in that section that the municipality?
Yes, there's no bridges, but it's 2 culverts, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I'm a little bit familiar with this road.
Okay.
At one point in time, I was hired for 2 or 3 seasons to grade it with a road grader, so
Oh, okay.
intimately, I remember it. The problem, as I remember, is the base in places is a little bit deficient. And it used to break up really badly in the spring,
Mhm.
I think. I don't know if it still does, whether that's been probably because there was a lot of clay in certain spots, right? So fairly close to the surface. So I think, I think, and I'm not sure, because there was, that there is there's a method on the books somewhere to do exactly what they're asking to do, right? So, and I kind of remember that there was another group in here 3 or 4 years ago, and we had the engineering done to take it to municipal standards, but I think there was a cost sharing between the inhabitants of the road and the township. But, you know, something needs to be done with this road because it's been sort of a thorn in everybody's side for a long time. But how the equitable way to do it is, we can't assume something that's, a lot of money to put to standard, right? So I think that would be my only concern here.
Okay, well, some of that will come out in a staff report. Counselor Collins.
What Will has not said is that now the Star Lake Cottage Association has the deeded access to this road, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And so they plan, if the assessment comes through from our Director of Roads to actually assume it, then we would own the road. So it will become an asset to the municipality. And I think you hit I think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of stuff that I've got written down here. You've been following the Seguin process. They've been following it to a T. It was actually 2.5 years ago.
Oh, was it? Okay, good.
Yeah, when our CAO and I met with Martin Bliss at his place,
yeah.
right? And we actually said, this is what you need to do. And so this is what they have done. So up to this point, it should be handed over to our Director of Roads for his assessment purposes. And yeah, let Tom evaluate it and come back to us with a report.
Tom, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing to add. It was very well documented, and I could pull back more onions, but I'll save that for the report.
Okay, so with council's agreement, we will refer this whole issue back to Tom and his staff to come up with a recommendation
Okay,
and
fantastic.
some recommended next steps.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for your time. And just quickly, off the record, I am like, not to bum kiss or anything, but every time I've called Ted Collins, he's called me back immediately. I've got to meet Jason, I got to meet Tom. They were fantastic. Met them here, awesome. Even the lady down there, Heather, said, I'm going to leave papers for you. They'll be ready. Everything I've done here has been professional and productive. But just to get back to what you said about the road, there was about 20, 25 years ago, the road was very sandy. And at that time, we raised the fees to the cottagers to get a better base down. And that's when we started getting Everett to drop loads of gravel on the thing to have a better base. But there was a time back then, yeah, it needed some upgrading. And we have, like I said, injected the money to try to get it up to the standard. So, okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Ted. And we'll wait to hear them back on the report then.
Thank you
Okay.
for all the work you've done.
Yeah.
And enjoy your summer.
Okay, you two take care and
Thank you.
have a nice meeting.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So is Andrew on screen? So our next delegation is Andrew Marabella from Hampson Consulting. Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we can't see you. We can see your name. I'm assuming you're going to want to share your screen.
Yeah, sorry, I'll share my screen and I can also see my camera here.
There we go. We can
Yeah,
see you.
you can see me now.
So welcome. And we're looking forward to your presentation.
Great. Let me just share the screen here. Okay.
Okay, we can
I'm
see it.
assuming
Thank
everyone
you
can
very
see that?
much.
Great.
Yep.
Well, thanks everyone. My name is Andrew Marabella, associate partner at Hempson. So we were retained to do an update to the township asset management plan to comply with the 2025 regulation. And really the purpose of this meeting and this presentation is to provide council with an update on some of our preliminary findings with the intention that the actual formal plan itself be brought forward for council consideration at a subsequent meeting. I think it's your September 2nd meeting for adoption. So just to kind of go through some of the background and some of the process here itself, the municipality has previously completed an asset management plan. And what we call that asset management plan is under the existing level of service framework, which included both your core and non-core assets. And there was a series of hurdles, I guess you call them, by the regulation in which you have to prepare different elements by different time periods here. And you see it started way back from July 1st of 2019 with subsequent updates in 22 and 2024. And where we are right now is the 2025 component, where you have to prepare an asset management plan under the proposed level of service framework for all municipal assets. Following the completion of this deadline here, there is annual progress updates that have to be done following the approval of this particular plan. And there's 5-year annual AMP updates as well. So this more fulsome plan will then again be reviewed in that 4 to 5 year time frame in accordance with the regulation itself. I will note that the timeline is outlined in the regulation is July 1st, 2025 for this proposed level of service plan. So we're a little bit past that exact deadline. That being said, there's a lot of municipalities like yourself that are kind of in the final stages here of just through the, kind of summer council schedules, trying to get through and get them approved kind of within the fall period. So you're not alone in that front in terms of your timeline of your AMP. We're certainly past the substantial completion stage for that July deadline itself. So what's different from this part of the regulation? There's the requirement here is what we call is to have a proposed level of service done. And It has to be undertaken over a 10-year period for both your core and non-core infrastructure. This plan has to be aligned with all your municipal infrastructure assets. We call them core and non-core, core being things such as roads, bridges, culverts, stormwater infrastructure, and water and wastewater to the extent the municipalities are serviced. Non-core infrastructure would relate to your buildings, your land improvements, vehicles, fleet, equipment, those types of things would fall under what they call kind of the non-core assets. We have to prepare the life cycle cost strategy and financing strategy associated with meeting the levels of services that we've set out. So there are targets that we've gone through and spoke with municipal staff about. And this is about trying to meet those targets and what the financial requirements in order to achieve those targets over that 10-year horizon. The 10-year period is, again, a function of OREG 58817, to which we're working under. So just to give a bit of a snapshot here of our AMP, the current replacement value of our assets is about $373 million, which is up from the previous AMP that was done, which had about a $314 million replacement value. Most categories have increased in terms of valuation. Your roads and related components represents just under 70% of that total value. Buildings being the next largest share, bridges and culverts, and some of the other infrastructure. So we continue to make improvements in terms of the data set that the municipality is responsible for. What's important here is, a municipality of your size really nearly responsible for about almost $400 million worth of infrastructure, recognizing that the lion's share of that rests with your linear hard infrastructure of roads services. Overall, when we think about the condition framework and part of one of the driving items here in terms of our AMP is understanding what the condition of those assets are. And we've tried to rely on a different series of information and data sets to inform that, whether it's conversations with municipal staff, looking at the in-service date of assets relative to its useful life, or relying on engineering reports such as your roads need study or your OSIMs to help determine what the condition framework looks like. And overall, the assets are kind of weighted in kind of a fair condition category. We see that there's about 60% within that block. The next kind of big share here is our good condition assets, about 34%. But there's still about 4% of those assets in that poor to very poor condition category, which we do need to be cognizant of. In addition to those ones that are in poor and very poor, which is the orange and red share, it's always important from a municipal finance perspective to concentrate on that fair conditions category area where it does represent such a dominant share of your overall total, but without proper care or asset management needs or and kind of repair and replacement activities, you can start to see that perhaps shift towards poor or very poor, and kind of move away from that fair condition category. So we really has to be targeted from an investment strategy perspective. I did want to highlight the roads part separately because this was done by through the roads need study based on the PCI values from there, and we haven't made any adjustments to those PCIs, but they align it on a 3-point scale system from poor to good. So you'll see here is most of your road assets are in that fair condition. That's really what's driving that bigger fair share on the previous slide. The rest of the share of the roads are largely in good condition with a small share in that poor state. And I know just certainly talking from municipal staff perspective, this is something that you'll look to redo or revamp the need study in the next couple of years, because obviously there's been some changes obviously in climate over the last couple of years, which could have deteriorated the roads. But again, working on the information that's available from that need study to help inform what those current conditions are. Just to kind of put some context to that in terms of the condition by asset category, this looks at those breakdown of all the different municipal infrastructure by the asset category, the infrastructure category. And then the percentages at the top kind of represent the replacement value share of that asset category. And your roads, again, having that 69% of the total, most of that relating to in that fair condition and good condition category. There are some areas within here that would, that are making up that very poor and poor. We see that with the dark red and the orange being the poor. So what makes up that kind of 4% share in the previous graph is made up of a series of different asset classes. Some of those in that very poor categories are really just related to kind of more of an age-based assessment, meaning that it's the conditions determined relative to the useful life of the asset and when it actually came into service. But the municipality has to continue to obviously monitor what those conditions are and make adjustments to it. And partly, particularly with the vehicles, your new contract and the way you're handling the vehicles through that third party would address some of those conditioned assets that we have, but this is as of year end 2024 information, so it'll be addressed in future budget cycles and future budget iterations as well. So one of the key things here is the level of service analysis and looking at the targets. And part of this is trying to understand what the current level of service is. And we had a series of conversations with staff to understand what the current snapshot of our level of service is in terms of the requirements of the regulation, in terms of which ones we need to monitor, as well as some additional ones that are help the municipality make investment decisions going forward. And we have to understand that with every level of service adjustment, there's different life cycle activities that would have to be changed in order to meet that. So if we wanted to have a different target level of service or proposed level of service, the municipality might look at adjusting their repair requirements or the frequency of replacements or different programs in order to do that. And those are all different life cycle activities. Different costs are associated with different life cycle activities, and there's also different risks that might have to be considered from the municipal perspective if you are not meeting the proposed level of services that we set out. But this is one of the requirements of trying to at least establish a framework for meeting the proposed level of service. Seguin, along with other municipalities, this is your first time at setting targets in the context of an asset management plan. So it's going to be really, really important that going forward from here, we try and really track our performance and see how we're progressing towards those targets. And if there's any adjustments or things that need to be done, you would make those adjustments to your annual reporting updates or through your discussions with council about what changes need to be made to the funding strategy or the level of service to kind of coincide with what's happening on the ground. So when we think about our level of service, we work with staff to identify what those services are that you're currently providing. There's certainly different measures that have to be done. We think about customer levels of service, which are a little bit more of the qualitative generic statements, and the technical levels of service for the purposes of setting our targets here in terms of tracking what those annual performance measures are. The technical level of service is what the municipality would use in order to track their level of service. We have to set a target. Again, we're looking at it from a 10-year horizon. And then once we've set the targets, it's trying to establish what that relationship is and trying to compare the results to your current performance. And again, moving forward over the longer term, assessing those impacts of those targets that we've set. And if we're moving closer to them, or what changes do we have to make from a life cycle activity perspective and the implications of doing that over the long term. So I'll go through some of the sample level of services that we've set. I will note that there are a series of them here. You'll see within the table, there's ones that are labeled OREG 58817, which means that those are level of service or technical level of service requirements by the regulation. So those are ones that the province has set out for us in which we need to track and address. And then there's a series of other ones that don't have that OREG 58817 qualifier on it. Those are based on discussions with staff and based on what we feel might be a good target level of service that we can meet. And some of that which would be related to an asset management type activity. So meaning that we can look at our investment strategy and we can look at the way we're managing our infrastructure as a way to meet that level of service over the longer term. So we just look at the first couple of them, and I won't go through each of them one by one, but I'll pick on a few of them here. For the roads, for example, the roads need study has our average pavement condition index, which is our PCI value of 73, which gives us a fair condition on both the paved as well as on the unpaved. Within, kind of talking with staff and an appropriate target here would be to continue to maintain that similar condition framework over the 10-year period. So making sure that our service levels don't drop below a fair condition. So we want to maintain that category. Certainly, if we were to move to increasing that level of service to a good or something better than that, that would likely require an additional increase in investments beyond certainly what's being done and even beyond what's in the roads need study. So keeping that kind of qualification in mind. When we look down to your bridges and culverts, the current condition of the BCIs of our bridges are about in fair condition. Looking at it from the roads need study, the OSIM reports, your target can be set closer to good, given that the recommendations within the OSIM reports, if the municipality were to fulfill them, you could be moving up on the condition framework or the targets there. The next category here is on fire. Looking at different operational elements here and useful life standards in terms of your replacement requirements, most of which is related to maintaining some of the current standards, particularly as they're in line with the NFPA standard itself. But in some instances here, it's about increasing the condition of our overall fleet from fair to good, looking at improving our truck downtime over the longer term. From currently it's about 90% of the time, increasing it up to 100% of the time, and then increasing the ratio of some of our spare PPE equipment to firefighters. So bringing it up so there's a little bit of extra gear available for firefighters that are employed by the municipality. So those are some of the target levels of service, and part of this next stage is to cost out and identify what those cost implications are going to be in order to do and move towards those target levels of service over the 10-year horizon. Just to kind of go into some of the other measures, and again, we looked at the services and the technical level of services for the most part. Not to go through all these in great detail as well. It's about a lot of the times maintaining the existing and current level of service, which has been identified as part of this process, and the target in most instances is about maintaining that current standard or increasing them where reasonable upwards based on kind of the trend line and what the municipality's current plans are. And some of that actually looks at kind of increasing or maintaining our service levels, even as it is kind of considering the growth that's occurring, increasing the percentage of playgrounds that are compliant with CSA standards, what the current level of service is, and as the replacement schedule of some of those playgrounds come to light, you'll be upgrading them over the time period, over the 10-year period. So some of that's just a natural progression of what the municipality is already committed or intending to do over the longer term. So part of this is once we understand some of the level of services that we've set out, we have to look at the life cycle activities. And the life cycle activities are about what those planned actions are in order to maintain those assets in a state of good repair and maintain and meet our level of service objectives themselves. Life cycle activities are usually categorized between your operating budget, your capital budget. So they're kind of two different components there in terms of your OPEX and your CAPEX, but the funding sources obviously are going to still be from a tax supported contribution, but how we're generating, how we're looking at it from a program perspective would be different between capital and operating. As part of the regulation, there's 6 different really life cycle activities that we're considering here. We have our non-infrastructure solutions. We look at things such as expansion activities. So we're expanding or acquiring municipal assets to expand our current servicing capacity. Look at different maintenance activities. Servicing those assets on a regular basis effectively will help maintain the original service potential. And if we don't do those types of maintenance activities, it could actually reduce the asset's useful life. So we want to make sure that we're properly capturing all those different maintenance activities as part of our life cycle approach here. Our 2 more traditional capital related or capital intensive exercises of our renewal activities and our replacement activities. What happens to an asset at the end of its life, or what happens to an asset at the mid-life cycle obligations to rehab or repair those assets. And then if there's any disposal activity. So once the asset has to actually be disposed of, perhaps there's costs associated with it, and we have to make those considerations as part of our A&P itself. So we'll be identifying the full life cycle cost over a 10-year period in order to meet our proposed level of service, and will be bucketed into those different categories that we have. And some of the things that we're going to be looking at, we closely will review the roads and the roads need study in terms of what those 10-year improvements are and what they've identified. And perhaps you've seen this through the roads need study presentation. So there's about $54 million over a 10-year period is what's been identified. And we'll have to review what those expenditure requirements are and relate that back to the level of services that we've set. In terms of your bridges and culverts, the OSIM rehabilitation recommendations average about $175,000 a year. And then the remaining assets we calculate based on the individual asset itself, what those conditions are, what the age is, and looking at what the investment requirements are needed to be in order to maintain those assets in a state of good repair. So we really kind of take a very detailed approach and look at what all the different asset and asset categories are, what the investment requirements need to be, and kind of look at that from a full life cycle cost perspective and try to relate that back to our proposed level of service. And that's really kind of the Hempson and staff next step here, is to take those levels of services that we've got, look at the budget and look at those reports and come up with an investment strategy that will kind of map out over the 10-year period in order to meet the levels of service. And that'll be subject to council's discretion and discussion about how you want to approve those financing strategies to meet those levels of services at the next meeting. So perhaps I went a little over my my time allotment here, but just to kind of cap over here our next steps and where we go from this point. We're going to continue to review those full life cycle costs with those targets in mind with staff. We'll go back and develop that 2025 A&P report with that financing strategy in order to present those results to council in early September to get an approval on the plan, recognizing that you'll obviously continue to review that plan at least annually as part of the progress report updates, but certainly every 5 years from a more formalized A&P update. But we'll be setting up municipal staff with the appropriate tracking in the model itself to kind of keep asset management a bit at the forefront here in your municipal decision-making framework.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
No problem.
I'm fascinated by where the financing is going to come from. Does council have any questions? Councillor Adams.
I'd just like to make one comment on the 2% of the roads. I think it's a bit higher than that myself. 73%, that's quite a bit for good roads. 2%, I believe, is in Ward 1 where the roads are bad. So I think it should be higher than 2% myself.
It just is a point of interest, the data sets, and Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, was based off of the approved roads needs study, which was approved, if I remember correctly, in 2024. But the data collection was undertaken in 2023. And since then we've had multiple weather events, and it's an indicator why updating things like a roads needs study every 5 years is so important, because conditions change. And so that's why, we have had this year's been a challenging year for our roads. There's no doubt about it, as was last year. And climate change has an impact amongst a variety of other things. So the data is based off of the current in-place studies, though.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. My comments or questions, I guess, questions pertain to the roads too. So I'm going back to the sample levels of service metric, where we're saying our current level of service for roads is fair, both for paved and unpaved, and that's based on the roads needs study that was done, which assessed, I guess, a mark of 73. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so 73 puts it in the fair category. So I guess my first question is what's the range that's fair? Like, what's the high and the low number?
That's a good question. I can get that for you. So the range would be 50 to 80 would go in fair condition.
Okay, so we're saying that, so then the target in your service metrics is just described as minimum fare. So I mean, there's a fair lot of latitude there. Correct?
There is, yeah, and part of it, we want to obviously maintain the current PCI framework, but there has to be, it's hard to make the exact number when we know there's been some movement perhaps in the data itself since the last road need study. So once you've got the updated road need study with perhaps an updated PCI framework, you can kind of zero in or hone in on a more number specific target. But at least for this position, we've just maintained a fair rating, recognizing the movement within the category.
Right, so then I guess where that leads me to is your slide over on page 32, but I'm not sure if that's your presentation or the council package. 4, your number 4, which shows that as a the asset summary condition
Mhm.
indicates about 34% of the roads are in what we class as good condition, right?
Mhm.
Good to very good condition. So then I guess what my question is that if we're only going to, and to keep those roads in good to very good condition, then do we not need a higher level of service to maintain, just to Jason's previous point, in the last couple of years, we've had some significant storm events. There's been erosion of gravel and probably all kinds of different things that have happened to them. So where do you compensate with the level of service? This is what I'm trying to understand. Like, shouldn't we be trying to provide a higher level of service in order to keep what roads we have that are in good shape now in good shape in the future? Or am I missing something here?
Well, the pie graph that you're referring to is an assessment of where things currently sit collectively
right.
with all your assets, right? And then
Right.
the roads portion is what's in fair condition. Now, if we wanted to increase the share that's in good, that would require us targeting your roads to be in good, because that'll move the needle from fair to good, right?
Yeah, but I guess what my point is do we not sort of do you not need to knock it into 2 buckets? That the maintenance on the roads that are currently in good condition should be at a higher than fair to
Oh,
keep
right.
them in good condition, where the ones that are in fair condition, if they're fair at 73 and we do a higher maintenance to them continually, then they'll get in better condition as well, right? Because they're gonna degrade due
Right.
to erosion and storms and use and all kinds of different things, right?
And we can certainly set the level of service in that way so that it's targeted at the roads, to have a different strategy for the roads that are in good condition to maintain that good category while also making sure the fares don't deteriorate any further, right? Because I mean, part of that's again a different treatment exercise for both of them, and we can structure it in that way for the plan.
Yeah, I think it's important that we
Okay.
protect the road system that's currently in good condition. In my opinion, we need to protect that.
Fair point.
I have a question.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that, excuse me, they're saying here that the approach over the next 10 years is that the roads, they've calculated that the roads need about 5.4 million per year. So I don't know what the budget for 2025 is, but in order for us to reach that amount of 5.4 million, I don't know how much more monies is going to be required for roads to reach that level. At this point, I have no idea. But maybe Tom could we could ask Tom what his budget is and what he needs to add to it for 2026.
through the mayor to Councillor Ted. So last couple of years, the budget's been kind of up and down, push jobs forward, push jobs back. With funding, with our capital. Michelle may be able to I'm just going off the top of my head right here, and I don't want to give any fake or improper numbers here. But it could be anywhere from 2.6 million. But that's allocated to the specific projects, fleet. Michelle may be able to speak to it a little bit better because it does kind of go all over the place. So I don't have it at the top of my head here.
I'm sure the 5.4 million includes capital roads projects, no?
That would be capital roads as identified in the roads need study, correct?
The 2025 capital budget for roads only was $4.9 million. And that included vehicle replacement, road construction, and a few other capital items.
Yeah, I mean, so in order to reach that target of 5.4, he just needs $500,000 in the 2026, but yeah, but I mean,
Well, I think that's what we get
We
to in
got
the
to-
next
yeah.
meeting to figure out what pieces do we
Yeah.
upgrade, do we maintain?
yeah.
So, yeah, those are all decisions that need to be made.
Yep.
Councillor Bazinski, you're next.
So last weekend I was at the Salmon Lake Annual General Meeting, and there were a lot of people that said that the road leading into Salmon Lake was in terrible condition. Having driven over the Horseshoe Lake Road, I'd say it was in pretty good condition. However, the whole thing is it's all subjective. The Salmon Lake Road, what it needs is there are about 5 small patches where there's more patchwork in the road than there is asphalt road bed. So there's something fundamentally wrong with that area. And I know in the past that Fowler had come in and done a few of those. And so I don't know, you'd have to look, basically take it down to the base and find out what's going on under there. So with that done, as far as I'm concerned, it's a darn good road going in. So I don't know, there's a lot of subjectivity to these classifications. And like, in my view, drive the road. And if you've got some experience, have a look, say, okay, these are the things that are needed. And for Salmon Lake, Blue Lake Road, as I say, there's 4 or 5 areas that need some attention. That's it. And I don't know what the cost, you'd have to get an estimate from the people bidding on those things, but the rest of the road was in pretty good condition. So all I guess I'm trying to say is, there's a lot of subjectivity to this. And also, is it the whole length of the road? Is it just a couple of portions of the road? Doesn't much matter. We just need to have an experienced person saying, these are the areas that need to repair or replacement. And as far as I'm concerned, you can study it to death, but the subjectivity is, it just, leaves me cold.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner.
That was a miscue on my part, but it was more to my point is, that the maintenance has gotta be geared to keep the good roads good and to try to improve the fair roads as well, because there's the maintenance, unless, Michelle, if you're still there, the number that you gave us for roads was the capital, right? Then on top of that, there's a bucket for maintenance. Is that correct? And then I guess the other question would be, the one thing that's changing would be how we're acquiring our equipment now too. I think was supposed to be a little bit more cost advantageous to go the new route versus buy all the time. So there might be some extra money there too. Anyhow. that's good.
Counselor Adams,
When we first did the roads needs study, was the $5.4 million not for the roads themselves, not for it wasn't for capital projects? Was it not for the roads itself?
The roads need study, if I remember correctly, and I don't have it in front of me, Councillor Adams, identified $5.4 million in capital improvements per
Roads.
year over a 10-year period. Just looking at the 10-year horizon, that was capital, not maintenance, not equipment, not wages and salaries and benefits.
repair
It was contracting out to a subcontractor to build, rebuild, reconstruct.
okay, I think what we're learning is asset management is a really important tool to teach us what we need to spend. And so the next step, I think, is in Andrew and Tom's bucket list for September 2nd to come back with some recommendations. We know our roads are major expenses and responsibilities. So thank you very much, Andrew, for waking us up perhaps to the magnitude of our responsibility. And we will look forward to the next steps from you.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council.
Thank you very much. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the August 5th, 2025 meeting of council. I have a mover, Ken and Greg. All in favor? Thank you. Put on a second page, I miss it. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize and direct staff to submit an application for funding to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation, which we usually call NOHFC, for cultural supports and community events stream to fund the annual Pumpkin Fest event in the village of Russell. And that council does hereby confirm the Township of Seguin's Recreation and Culture Committee contribution, and that the Township of Seguin will cover any potential cost overruns. Could I have a mover to this? Ted and Terry? Dominique, do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I won't say too much about it. It's fairly straightforward. The application has been formally submitted, the first part of the application. So we have been approved to go to the second step, which is where we ask for council support and by resolution. This is much similar to the grant we got for the Seguin Sled Dog Mail Run. It's the same program, and it was very, very helpful to grow that event. And Pumpkin Fest, as I'm sure you've all been to or know of, is a very large, very successful event. The money from the NOHFC will just allow them to grow further. So hopefully council will support this application and we will move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominique. Does anybody have any questions for Dominique? Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Has Dominique, has Seguin for 2025 given any grant money to you for the Pumpkin Fest, or no?
It's actually
receive any
through
Sorry.
it's through the Recreation and Culture Committee. So, but Pumpkin Fest itself, they actually support themselves. So year after year, they have money in their account that supports
Yeah,
the next
that's-
year's event.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you, Dominique.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I mean, last year we tried to count and we thought there were about 8,000 visitors to Rosso in one day, one morning day. It's a huge, huge event run by volunteers. So I certainly support it. Can I call this vote? All in favor? Thank you. And that is carried. Good luck, Dominique.
Thank you.
Oops. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application numbers B 2025-0011-H and B 2025-0012-H for Morasuti, subject to the conditions set out in the decisions. Could I have a mover for this? Greg and Ken? Brady, are you there to tell us about it?
Yes, yes, thank
Okay.
you. So these applications, they were brought forward for a public meeting on July 7th. No concerns were raised at the public meeting. The purpose of the consent applications are to permit 2 lot additions to benefit 117A and 117B Steeles Road. And the associated zoning bylaw amendment that is with it is to recognize deficient lot area and frontage for both those properties. So we are recommending approval of the applications.
Thank you. Any questions from council? All in favor? Thank you. Did these go with it?
Yes.
Yes, okay, this is a second piece of the same thing. I have a motion that bylaw number 2025-058, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll numbers 4903-010-002-15800 and 4903-010-002-15900 for 117A and 117B Steeles Road. Application numbers are 2025-0011-H and R 2025-0012-H is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I need a mover, Ken. And a seconder, please, Mario. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion. It's a long one. Whereas on November 18th, 2024, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin passed resolution number 2024-323, granting provisional approval to consent applications numbers B 2024-0017-H and B 2024-0027-H for 2123274 Ontario Limited, subject to the conditions set out in the decisions. And whereas the applicant has requested a change of conditions to reflect the new survey information, and whereas Section 53, bracket 23 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, permits council to change the conditions of a provisional consent at any time before a consent is granted. Therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby amend Township of Seguin Council Resolution number 2024-323 by replacing the conditions of approval with the conditions of approval attached to this resolution, being the conditions of approval for consent application numbers B 2024-0017-H and B 2024-0027-H for 2123274 Ontario Limited. And further, that as per the authority granted under Section 53, bracket 26 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P 13, as amended, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin has determined that the changes to the condition of consent application numbers B 2024-0017-H and B 2024-0027-H for 2123274 Ontario Limited, as indicated, are minor and do not require further notice to be provided. Could I have a motion mover, please? Thank you, Ken. A seconder. Do you want to explain this one, Brady?
Yes, I will. Thanks. So these consent applications, they were to create 2 new lots on Clear Lake Road. They were provisionally approved in November of last year. So the recent draft survey, when it was completed, it revealed that the retained lot had less road frontage than what was previously shown and referenced within the provisional approval. So the applicant's agent has requested a change to the conditions to reflect that survey information. So the proposed amendment is very minor, and we are recommending that the conditions be changed.
Counselor Fellner.
So, thanks, Brady. So I want to make sure that there was a concern when this was granted that the retained lot would have a compliant entrance to the Clear Lake Road, because it's in a really bad part of the Clear Lake Road. It's not particularly a safe part of the Clear Lake Road. So now I see that the road frontage for that retained lot is being decreased. So my question would be, probably not to you, probably to our Director of Public Works, that it is as condition 8 in the original approval was a confirmation of entrance approval for severance and retained parcels. So with this reduced frontage, does that impact that condition?
So I will say that that condition remains unchanged. They still need to require the approval for an entrance from Public Works. If Tom has anything to comment, then he can on that.
Through the mayor, nothing right now. We are very aware of the sightline issues in there, so we are just waiting for that application to come through.
Oh, okay, so there's been no confirmation and there's been no approval for condition 8 yet.
I'd have to talk to staff to make sure if there's something has been come through on that. But as I know right now, I have not heard anything on that. There's been some chatter, I believe, out there and what could do, but nothing from the applicant that I'm aware of.
So then this is all conditional until that condition's met anyhow, right? So,
The conditions remain in place.
yeah, okay.
Counselor Getty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On that, Councillor Fellner, I believe that part of even the severance being approved was that when that concern was raised, that there was a review and a confirmation that a driveway could safely be installed on that property. So to Councillor Fellner's point, if we're reducing that frontage, have we impacted the ability to have a safe entrance? And I think that I understand that the actual size and the changes relative to the lots may be minor, but it could be more major, specific to the safe entering and exiting from that property onto the road. So I think but if I remember back to when this was approved, it was contentious, and it was one of the issues that was addressed, I believe, by staff prior to that, the application coming forward. And we may be a little early in approving this without that being done.
I just want to point out that the conditions remain in place. We're not approving it until the conditions are made.
And I understand that, Madam Mayor, but to the same as the conditions potentially change by making the frontage smaller.
Brady?
Yes, and I will if Taylor has any comment on this either, but um I believe that it will not affect the condition whatsoever. But if Taylor had anything to add, I see he's online now.
Sorry, I had a glitch there with my VPN. I missed that question.
The question is that particularly condition 8, that the applicant needs to receive confirmation from the Township of Seguin Public Works for entrance approval for both the severed and retained parcels as applicable. Is that those conditions are yet to be met, as I understand it?
Yeah, that I've heard the first part of the question. That was an original condition that remains unchanged. So that's not a net new problem. So if they cannot satisfy it, the entire consent will fail. I'm just checking the file right now to see if they have received clearance or not. But essentially, I don't think it's premature for this change of conditions because it's just based upon the metrics of the lot. But no matter what, they have to provide a safe and appropriate location for the access, which meets public works entrance requirements. And if they can't do it, then just like the original application, it does fail. I do believe Public Works has been out on site in the past, though, and they thought it was possible, but it just might require some landscaping, to put it lightly.
Tom, do you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just try to dig back my notes here for that property, and there is a way, and there is some signage that can be installed. Hidden entrance sign. It's been past practice that we've done. Now sometimes common sense can prevail. The sign won't. Not everyone's going to read a sign, right? So if we find severe issues with it, then we'll deny it. But as it stands right now, there are mechanisms in place to address a hidden entrance.
Thank you. Councillor Bazinski.
I'd like to be more convinced, like a strong positive, that there's good access. To be honest, I think that this should just be deferred until we have the engineering report that says that we can get the access in, and then we can deal with this at the same time as removing the that condition if it's so seen.
Our CAO would like to speak to this.
So for council's benefit, we've already approved the series of conditions that are associated with this severance. We've already approved the conditions. During due diligence, some extra work that was undertaken, they realized there was a mistake in the actual frontage of this one lot. So what they're asking for today is to amend the conditions to recognize the deficient measurements or whatever it was that was taken at the time. The reality of the actual severance is taking place. No severance takes place until such time as the engineering is presented that says, yes, you can have a safe road access off of both the retained and the new lots. So until such time as the proponent decides to do the engineering work to figure out how they're going to access the road, the conditions are unfulfilled. All they're asking for today is they're saying, hey, there was a little minor mistake in our measurements. We want to correct that. The conditions are still there. They are not getting their severance until such time, and Taylor can correct me if I'm wrong, or Brady can correct me if I'm wrong, but no one is getting a severance until the conditions, all of them, including the safe access onto the Clear Lake Road, is fulfilled. So they came to us and said, hey, we made a mistake. We want to clarify that. They still have to honor all the conditions, which include access on and off the road, amongst all the other conditions that are laid out.
I'd like to know too, previously they did have clearance for an entrance on the retained lot. So they did that earlier this summer. So that does check out. That condition has been satisfied.
Thank you very much.
It was noted though that significant site alteration would be required to establish the entrance.
Thank you for clarifying. So we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Thank you, and that is carried. Hang on. So we directed staff to look at a rock crushing bylaw, and we have a draft in front of us for comments. It's comprehensive. So I hope everybody's read it. Are there any questions? No? So the next step, I guess, Taylor, is to turn it into a real bylaw? Public consultation has to occur, I believe.
Yes, with the communications department, we're going to post it online, circulate it to lake associations and our list of contractors, put it on Let's Connect, get public feedback on it. And then once we hear back from that, we'll bring it to council likely in the fall for a recommendation. The goal is to have it in effect come the new year before next construction season.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for drafting it. I have a motion. Whereas on June 17th, 2024, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin passed resolution number 2024-171, granting provisional approval to consent application number B 2024-0007-M for Miller, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. And whereas the applicant has requested a change of conditions for a severance of the subject parcel, and whereas Section 53, bracket 23 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, C, page 13, permits council to change the conditions of a provisional consent at any time before a consent is granted. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby amend Township of Seguin Council Resolution number 2024-171 by replacing the conditions of approval with the conditions of approval attached to this resolution, being the conditions of approval for consent application number B 2024-0007-M for Miller. And further, that as per the authority granted under Section 53, bracket 26 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P, page 13, as amended, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin has determined that the changes to the conditions of the consent application number B 2024-0007-M for Miller, as indicated, are minor and do not require further notice to be provided. I need a mover, please. Greg and Ken. And Brady. Once again, this is just a correction, I believe. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this is also a correction slightly different than the previous one. So this one though, it was revealed that the lands were one conveyable parcel. So the lot addition parcel, it can't merge with the subject lands as it's one parcel. So the applicant's agent requested a change to the conditions as well to reflect the severance of the parcel. So we are recommending that the conditions of approval be changed as well for this one.
Are there any questions? All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried. Tom, you are on just a second here. This is the report on the automated speed enforcement. I think it's pretty straightforward where none of the roads are ours. But Tom, do you want to give us a little bit more background?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's very straightforward. Unfortunately, we are unable to put the automated speed enforcements on MTO roads, and that is province-wide. I did a lot of back and forth with industry experts, a few individuals at the Ministry of Transportation, and it's a hard no.
Councillor Getty.
Okay, I'm gonna select the term I use for the decision made by the MTO. But I think the work that Tom's people did on this, I thought was fantastic. I think we've talked about it at this table before. I think when you look at the World Health Organization report relative to speed, the fact is, whether it is an MTO, a provincial highway, or a municipal road owned by the municipality of Seguin, the reality is that every child in this community goes to this school across the road here that fronts onto, just happens to front onto a provincial highway. And Madam Mayor, you just spoke about 8,000 people coming to enjoy with children at Pumpkin Fest in October every year over the Thanksgiving weekend in the village of Rossall. And I think that of the 3 places that were chosen, those 2, as well as out front of the community center in Orville, where we do have sidewalks that take people from that community down, back and forth to that facility. I am asking that we as a council draft a letter of protest to our Member of Parliament, the Minister of Transportation, and the Premier of the Province of Ontario, because I think it is short-sighted in the reasoning that they gave Tom and his staff after the work that they did in regards to this. And I would also like to take this opportunity. I was going to ask to show pictures, but I won't. Again, I'll watch the term that I use, but the equipment that was prepared and utilized by Tom to do this analysis was vandalized. And just so that everybody that's watching this understands, there was a substantial cost to the township because of somebody's vandalization and smashing of that equipment, which we will all pay for with our taxes. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Getty. Is council supportive of a letter of support to our Member of Parliament? Yep, I see it. So I will ask staff to work with Councillor Getty to draft that. I can't believe we're the only ones that have busy highways in front of schools that probably should have speed enforcement. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for the work you did. And for everybody listening, vandalized equipment puts your taxes up, your own taxes. So we move on to an outstanding report. It's a big read, but it's a long overdue, important read. And I'd like to just say thank you to Preston, Forrest, and Tom. It is an outstanding analysis. So, who's going to talk to it? All 3 of you, I know, had a hand in it. Preston, over to you.
Thank you. I'd be happy to introduce the report. So the staff report itself is mainly meant to draw the attention to the waste management review, which was circulated in the agenda package. Firstly, I would like to note and highlight that this is still a draft report, and at this stage it's for information only. A final report with final recommendations is planned for September. So right now it's just information only. So just a little bit on the report itself, without going into too many details. The waste report incorporates a lot of different information, including the Dillon report, the 2023 and 2025 public surveys. It incorporates waste tonnages, population data, operating budgets, and a lot of other considerations as well. During the analysis of these variables and items, along with public engagement and consultation, we determined there are several inefficiencies and challenges in our current waste system. These include, but are not limited to, non-resident dumping, illegal dumping of larger items such as boats and furniture, anticipated cost increases, and ongoing strain on municipal resources. The report aims to address and identify and fix these challenges by outlining various scenarios, all of which are addressed either a small portion or all of the challenges previously mentioned. We look at everything from resident impact, operating costs and impact, capital cost, and simple payback in each of these scenarios. It's also, I would like to also highlight, as everyone is aware, that a lot of the different recommendation scenarios in this report have a wide-ranging impact, a potential large-ranging impact on the residents and ratepayers of Seguin. So at all times, we've tried to maintain public consultation, public input, and include that in the report wherever possible and whenever possible. In the spirit of that, we are planning and going to be doing a public information session, which it'll be open for the public, either virtually or in person, on August 14th at the Humphrey Community Center. This report itself, the Waste Management Review, is available on the Seguin website right now under Waste and Energy. And as I said, the final report is expected in September, and any comments, questions, concerns, and potential changes that come up as of the public information session will be included in the final report. So we will incorporate the public engagement from the information section in the final report. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or try to answer them. Thank you.
Councillor Bazinski.
Thank you. Just a few comments. It is a good report, so don't take offense, but I have some issues. Number one, first and foremost, doing an open house on a Thursday is not receptive to getting seasonal population out who are working in Toronto, and they can't get onto a visual on their computer screen because they're working. I would advocate that these types of sessions should be held on the weekend when it's possible for more people to attend. That's number one, and I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it every time something like this is held midweek. The fundamental thing you have to remember with our waste management system is if you make it too hard for people, they're going to throw it in the bush or throw it in the lake, which is a lot worse. And I've seen both those situations happen. So I think a lot of this is good in terms of maybe reducing a transfer station or two. I think that's probably a good idea, as long as it's, not going to put someone too far out of the way to get to another one. Resident pass system, people forget garbage bags in their car when they're going in shopping. Unless you keep your pass with you at all times in your wallet or something, it's going to be very difficult. So if you do go for a pass system, please make it wallet size so that you can I can stick it in my wallet, or the ladies can stick it in their purse, and it's good. In terms of revenue opportunities, again, if you make people pay, they're going to weigh the trade-off of throwing it in the bush or not. Some people have the luxury, they can take it back to Toronto or wherever they're from. But, it's disheartening. I was at the Brooks Road station today before I came over, and I saw a lady there throwing cans, just bare cans, into the transfers. And I don't know if you can educate people or not, but it's, I just don't want to see, I don't want to see people throwing it into the bush. You definitely have to go after the camps and contractors, and maybe when you have the contractor sessions, which hopefully you're still doing, you could talk to them about, estimating in terms of the work they're doing, the cost to get rid of the garbage, and they should be paying for that. And that should be built into their bid so they don't just go and, get rid of it wherever, because that seems to be a big problem from what I've seen at the transfer stations. And you know, there's always this talk, well, do we have to put staff on? You may have to consider staffing a facility like Brooks Road, which gets a lot of Perry Sound traffic. So those are, they're meant to be constructive, and just based on my experience living in the municipality. So, you know, please don't take any offense to it. We're all trying to get a good system going here, and those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Start off, I want to just commend you three gentlemen for this report. This is, since I've been sitting at this table, this is the best, the most comprehensive staff report that I've seen. And it follows along, you know, proper accepted business principles. I actually introduced this report to the North Lake Joe meeting the other night and told them to, if they wanted to have a voice, to be prepared to exercise that option on the 14th of August. And they weren't really all that concerned about it being a Thursday, because most of them don't want to take time out in the weekend anymore when they can jump on Zoom. Right? Matter of fact, a lot of people went to the meeting on Zoom, you know? So I don't think that's a significant issue anymore. I think it's a change, you know, the times are changing. I know that this is very timely because it seems to get, the abuses seem to get worse and worse every year. Every year, they're more blatant. There's more stuff left at the transfer stations that should be down in Christie, in the Christie landfill, taken directly there. And I know that I've taken a lot of comments from residents, both in my ward and in everybody's ward. The people are fed up. They've had enough, right? And they know they're paying for, you know, guys that are charging their clients to get rid of the construction debris and then bombing it into the trans stores at 2 o'clock at night, you know, this type of thing. So good for you. I'm looking forward to the meeting on the 14th of August and looking forward to your report in September. Thank you.
Councillor Getty.
Well, Councillor Fellner stole my thunder for saying it was the best report. I'm not as old as him or have been around council as long, but I totally agree. We've asked, you showed us the money. You gave suggestions to go along with it, whether or not some or all of them are followed, but at least there was a process to it. I've spent the weekend out at the transfer sites in my ward, handing out the flyers from down at the front desk. And I think that, again, to echo what Terry said, people are fed up, but I think it is important that two things. One, we try to get as much information in the physical hands of people. And I would suggest if there is any time that staff or some of the summer students are able to spend at the transfer sites handing those information sheets out, they're very well received. People want to talk about it when they realize that I'm not trying to sell something to them and I'm not a marketing firm, but they all have an opinion on it. And I think that as was mentioned both by Councillor Brzezinski and Fellner, this will have an impact, and Preston, this will have an impact on our residents. And probably more than anything that's come before council since I've been on, I think it's important that we take community feedback. It's something that a lot of times we make the decisions here based on what we think is the best thing to do. Staff do that as well. And I think that, you know, the more we can get out and get pushing this information out and getting information back in from the community will help us to make the best decisions that we can at this table. We said that a couple of meetings ago that there would have to be some hard decisions made, and there may very well. I have 3 of the transfer stations in my ward. 2 of them are in the report, named, well, all 3 are named in the report, but 2 are named as potentially being closed. It's an issue. But I think that we need to be able to articulate it, take that feedback from from the community. And I look forward to that being included in the final report after the meeting in August. Thank you.
Preston, you had your hand up. Do you have something to add at this point?
Yes, I guess quickly start by thanking everyone who spoke so far. I'm glad that you enjoyed the read. A lot of work went into it, and I'm very glad there's a positive reception. Second of all, I would just like to highlight in response to several comments made, the report and the meeting, the public information session is going to be recorded and it will be left online for people who cannot attend on the Thursday to attend and watch. As well, there will be a method in place for them to post feedback, questions, and comments on the presentation and the information provided in the information session. So even if they can't attend Thursday, they still will have a chance to participate in some capacity and provide some level of feedback. Exact specifics will be determined, but there definitely will have that opportunity. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I know people are fed up, and I've lived here long enough to even remember when one of our councils tried residential pickup on the rural roads. Poof, what a disaster. We had raccoons, crows, foxes, everything within 10 minutes of putting garbage out in plastic bins, not bags, bins. And I think people really are fed up. People are speaking to the offenders and getting rude answers sometimes. And it is truly affecting our taxes. So these are places to save money, be better at what we do, both in picking up garbage and in cutting greenhouse gases. Remember, environment first, leadership, grow. These are all bang-on strategies. So I think the public is ready to make some changes. To the best of my knowledge, talking to all the people I know, we're the only people that don't limit hours and don't have any staff or identification in the neighborhood. So I think Councillor Collins is first and then Councillor Getty. Councillor Collins, do you have something to say?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The permanent, excuse me for my voice. I was playing rugby on the weekend. The Irish won. My only concern would be the airport, not where the present location is, because council moved the transfers or what are they called?
We moved the
Yeah.
location.
We moved the location. It should be back in the airport. Only because of where that location is, it's being used by everybody and their mother coming down the 400. We are planning our expansion of the airport, the commercial entities of the airport. What would be the ramifications moving forward with that? And where would they have to go just to dump their garbage if it's not there at the airport?
Our CAA was going to wait.
That's all I have to say about the report. Other than that, it's very good, very comprehensive, and I'm proud of all three of you guys. Thank you.
Just in response to Councillor Collins' question, commercial and industrial entities within the airport do not use our transfer site. They are responsible for their own waste management. They have their own waste contracts for pickup and disposal at their buildings. Nowhere in the municipality do we accept commercial or industrial waste from any site. So they're responsible. So no one in the airport is actually using
The airport.
no one in the airport is supposed to be using the airport transfer site.
Councillor Getty.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to also contain in the report, Forrest, we spoke about it. You've included an administrative penalty system. I think, I'm a fan of it, but I think that it may be something for the August meeting. If there is something, if we can educate the public in regards to what the benefits of implementing an administrative penalty system will do. We're talking earlier on, we were talking that we can't get the MTO to allow us to put a camera up to keep children safe in front of a public school. But even if without an administrative penalty system, we are subject to any kind of enforcement through the Provincial Offences Act, which becomes very onerous. And in fact, the real reason why we're not getting any enforcement now. So I think that if it might be something to consider, I'm not looking to tell you what to do, but I do think it's progressive. And I think it's something that the community may not understand, but if they understood it, they may be in more support of it. That's my only comment.
Go ahead, Forrest.
Yeah, through your worship, we agree 100%. Really, the an AMPS type system gives us some teeth to enforce above and beyond human presence, as well as proof of residency, so on and so forth. So it's certainly part of the same puzzle. As far as the requirements that'll go into implementing an AMPS system, we'll have to spend some real time working with bylaw and likely discussing how some of our neighbors may have implemented an AMPS type system, because as you are aware, it is it is an involved process to get going.
No, I understand, but I think we all understand the benefit of it. I think my concern, not a concern, I think there would be a benefit for people being able to understand it. It's something that many in the community may not realize the benefit of it and the enhanced ability to control the problems that we have that we're trying to address within this report. Thank you.
Duly noted. We will speak to that.
Thank you very much. It is an outstanding report. I did hear Councillor Getty ask before the meeting to get some of these reports printed in hard copy. Certainly at the Lake Joe meeting, Councillor Getty and Councillor Fellner and I tried to direct them to where it was in today's agenda package. So it's something to be proud of, and I hope the community does read it and attend the session. And I'm depending on you folks to teach me how to record and have an electronic participation at the Humphrey Community Center, because I was told it would only happen if it could be in the council chambers. So you IT folks, tell me your secret after the 14th. But congratulations on an outstanding report with fabulous analysis and lots of options that I'd like to see implemented. So we move on. I have bylaw number 2025-064, being a bylaw to authorize the lease of certain portions of a municipal parking lot at the Rosso waterfront to Bracebridge Generation Limited, which is normally called Lakeland Solutions, and to authorize the execution of a Hydro One Networks, Inc. request for service related to EV charging stations, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a mover, please? Ted? A seconder, please? Greg? Is anybody talking to this? Forrest, you're on.
My pleasure, Your Worship. Yeah, so this is the next iteration of a lease agreement for electric vehicle charging. Council will remember, I guess it was close to 2 years ago now, the agreement that we entered with them for the installation of similar charging stations at the municipal office. They have since remained interested in growing the network and serving the public to provide the parking and the charging infrastructure along the 141 corridor, particularly at such a highly transited location. And it seems a natural fit, and myself, Director McLeod and Director O'Brien. Met on site with them numerous times, walking through different options, different opportunities as not to impact the existing parking that is there. Council will notice that we have also identified a alternative which expands some of the parking at the Rosso waterfront. As council knows, the waterfront can be a rather busy place, particularly on the very successful market days on Friday. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, but the contract itself is identical to the one that we entered into previously in 2023.
Councillor Getty.
Thank you, Mayor. Forrest, so same as before, we're somewhere between our portion between 6 and 9% puts us at $1,800 to $2,700 for the first proposal for the 4 spots, correct?
No, for the 4 spots to do all the groundwork listed on page 304, the estimate is 20 to 30,000, and that number was come to from working with Tom to gather up some estimates there. The 6 to 9% is relative to the total build, the total build. So the estimate that I've been told to bring the electric vehicle charging infrastructure into place is between $350,000 and $400,000. So the Seguin portion of that would be 6 to 9% for just the parking spaces preparation.
Sorry, I thought that's what so 6 to 9% of the $30,000
No,
between the 20 and 30.
20 and 30 would be our cost.
Got it.
The entire project cost is between 350 and 400,000. So our percentage of the total project is very low. Is maybe I didn't phrase that right, but
Okay. Yeah, I was just confused when I read it. I saw the 30 and then I saw the 6 to 9. And then we went on the option 2, put it up to a dozen spots was 60. So my question was,
yeah.
where are we at with what it's costing us? Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, my apologies.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you. We went through this whole thing with the pool building. I'd be remiss not to comment on that. First of all, I think that, you've got to remember that Lakeland's in this to make some money, and they're getting a grant where we're being asked to put out of our pocket, and we're not getting any revenue. The explanation given to us previously was that, well, by the time the equipment pays out, it's no good and has to be replaced. But we were able at the pool to get some compensation. I'll just leave it at that. I think a little bit. No, I think we got some infrastructure. I think no revenue. It makes sense to me if we had to spend 30 for 4 spaces, well, it makes sense to me to spend 60 to get 12. I think we probably could stand some more parking down there anyhow. I just think is there an opportunity for you to go back and see if, they'd pick up part of our servicing costs, because it's a commercial thing for them. We're really giving them the area to conduct their business operations, and then being asked to sort of provide the upgrades for them to do it too, which I think a bit much. Anyhow, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. I think I've been one of those folks that's had the conversations with Lakelands and some other projects, and negotiating for percentages or in-kind services tend to be rather difficult. What we're presenting here is an option to construct 4 or 12, to your point, new parking spaces in a place that's pretty limited on parking spaces to begin with. One option that we could have pursued was just to hand them over 4 of our existing parking stalls and take them away from the inventory. But there is already a very significant shortage of parking stalls within that space. So using existing would prove to be a significant detriment to the space, in my opinion, and I believe in the team's opinion. So constructing some new spaces in an area that's directly adjacent to the hydro infrastructure that would come in is a preferred option, and as outlined in this report, our recommended option.
Councillor Bazinski's next.
Just a comment. Lakeland's going to be making money off this, correct? They're going to have these charging stations, and they are going to be charging by the hour or whatever it takes per kilowatt hour.
And my understanding, Councillor Brzezinski, is that their payback on the infrastructure is between 12 and 14 years before they get their payback.
Yeah, and a solar panel on a roof might be 20 to 25 years. I guess the whole thing is they're getting a grant, and like I have a bit of a concern because it's a commercial operation. They're going to make money, and the township's not going to get anything for it. So, and they're going to bring in, I assume if they're constructing, they've got equipment or they've got a contractor that will do all this. And is it really going to cost 30 grand for 4 spots? I just, I don't know what to say. Will they go ahead if the township says you can have the land, but we don't want to contribute? Like, I don't know. It just seems to me that if we do this in other locations as well, we're going to be spending a significant amount of money for a company that's going to make money. That's just my comment.
Councillor Adams.
I'm looking at, is the black line, is that where the parking is gonna be? Where the black line square and then the red?
Through your worship, the red square on page 302
Okay.
is where the proposed 4 lots would be. If you go to the alternative section on page 305, you'll see where the proposed parking spaces would be for a larger build out. To the point around the costing, these were high-end estimates that Tom helped pull together based on his level of experience, and the actual likely number would be less, particularly if going through a larger exercise.
Thank you.
So the black area, the lines, that is parking or not?
It's the red area.
The
red
black
area.
line, the black lines are property lines. for
Just the
land
property
parcels.
Okay, no, that's all.
Councillor Getty, just comment.
Thank you. My question, I guess, more is for Tom. Is this cost contingent upon the partnership with Lakeland? And I guess just trying to get an understanding for us, what would be the cost? I don't disagree that we need more parking at the waterfront. What would the cost be if Lakeland was not going to install at the waterfront? What would the cost be for us as a municipality to put a dozen more parking spots in there? That's my question.
Through the mayor, what you see will be the cost. There's some net new, it was 12, sorry, $60,000. We'll manage it pretty tightly in-house here. And, blasting may be variable. So yeah, high level, 60,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fellner.
I know you didn't want me to talk again, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I think that if Tom can give us 12 spots for 50 grand, I think that's a good deal. And then if we gave them 4, well, then it would be 50 divided by 12 would be substantially less than 30. So I think I could probably live with that to give the ratepayers and visitors the convenience of being able to charge their very clean car at the waterfront. But we get 12 new spaces. I'd be in agreement with that.
Thank you. I guess okay, Councillor Collins, last comment on this issue, and then I'm going to speak.
Comment yet, but from a business perspective, the cost of 12 lots, 12 parking spaces for 50K is the way to go. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Okay. I may be speaking with a little bit of a bias here because I drive an electric car. But I do want to remind everybody that we are environment first, and we want to encourage people in our township. If you come to the Rossall Market, and I met somebody last week on the 25th anniversary, said, "Where can I charge my car?" And I said, "About 10 kilometers down the highway." He said, "I don't have 10 kilometers left." That was to come here. So if we're gonna welcome visitors, we ought to provide infrastructure. And I do understand the payout of 14 to 15 years. How many cars have you seen out here at Humphrey? Not many. Lakeland is not making money in our parking lot here. I'll tell you that. No. And I would say this is an offer that we shouldn't turn down. I like 12 more parking spots. They're desperately needed. But I also think EV infrastructure is something we should prioritize when we can. So we have a motion on the table?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to amend it?
And I asked the clerk to help me with this, but I'd be prepared to, I'm proposing to say, let's go ahead with this. Let's build the 12 spaces.
Through your worship to council, this bylaw is simply the agreements, does not speak to the 4 or 12.
Oh, I see.
Staff will have to come back with that in order to decide where they're going to fund that from. So that could potentially be a resolution requiring a transfer from reserves or something. I don't know. That'll have to
Right.
be looked at.
So we need to approve this first and then they can come back. Is
That's-
that what you're telling me?
That's my understanding, Force. Please speak up, but I believe this is just the agreements, not the number of spots.
That's correct. That is correct.
So we're gonna sign the agreement, we're gonna vote on the agreement, then we're gonna figure out.
Then we have to find out where the
Yeah.
funds come from probably a reserve, but that's a separate resolution. Okay?
For chargers, we gotta give. them more
Speak to
parking
it.
space. How we do that is up to us.
Okay, let's not talk. Side talk.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I'm trying to speak.
so we'll pass this and then we'll need to come back, I guess, probably through Tom for the 12 spots and a resolution of where it's coming from. So-
Want to verify that with Michelle while she's online.
Michelle, is that the right process? If you're there?
I am, and yes, that would have to come back through council because it's not a budgeted expenditure. Depending on the timing, it may come through the 2026 budget, so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the table for the Lakeland portion of it. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and all, so it's carried. Thank you. Okay, business. This is a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby agree to reconsider the matter of licensing of short-term rentals. And I need a motion from Mr. Getty. And seconded by Ken. Doesn't matter who seconds? Okay. All in favor? This is to send it back. We need 2/3 to send it back to staff to bring back a recommendation on
So,
this.
Kel, you're correct, Kel. Sorry, Your Worship. You're correct. There's a required 2/3, which is 5 of 7 members to carry this motion to reconsider. And that's all it is, to reconsider. Then if that's carried, Councillor Getty, I believe, is going to propose a motion related to actual licensing.
this is now the next step. Motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize and direct staff to review the matters outlined in the short-term rental review document attached as Schedule A to this resolution and report back to council. So I need Mr. Getty. Thank you. And a seconder. Okay. All in favor? No discussion? Okay, thank you. Great. I have a motion. This is taxes. I have a motion that bylaw number 2025-059, being a bylaw to write off taxes on properties in the Township of Seguin, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I believe this one's due to a fire. You're gonna move it, Councillor Getty? Oh, okay, Mario and Ken. All in favor? Thank you. And that is carried. So you have an information report from myself, well consulted by staff to keep me on track. This is us learning as we go for the first time of the strong mayor powers. I want to assure you that my goal is to make this a consultative, cooperative council budget. Where they put the words mayor in, I want to put the word council in. So that's what we're starting here. The key parts of it are the dates, obviously, and kind of the 4 points that are on page 327 of your council package, that we really spend our time focusing on the pieces of the budget that we have control over, because there's a lot that we don't. Education, healthcare, they're on top of us. So I'd like to start communicating each within ourselves and with our public that here's what we, the councillors, can control. And these are the pieces of the puzzle that improve your quality of life in Seguin. So I'd like us to talk that way. We're starting, you heard the asset management people talking about a 10-year horizon. So I think when we can, we should talk about a 10-year horizon on the numbers. And they will change, and we'll learn in the 10 years to modify them. You'll recall that last year our budgeting, we saw cost of living one day, we saw capital another day, and operating another day. And really, until the very end, we didn't see it all. So we're suggesting, and staff is very much in favor of this, of bringing it all together from the beginning so that we can, if we have to, we make trade-offs from the get-go, not at the 11th hour. And that's important. Now, it will be a council budget. I want it to be a council budget. The dates are somewhat Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and they don't sit at this table, but those are the dates we live with. The one piece that I think we need to kind of be a little bit cognizant of is that there's some of these external levies that we do have a little bit of input to, and I sit on the EMS committee. Ted, you and Gail are at DSAP. You're at OPP. As those budgets come, put the Seguin hat on and say, are our constituents getting value for whatever DSAP budget looks like? And when I'll do it as best I can at EMS, and I hope you'll do it as best you can at OPP, recognizing your voice is one of tiny, but it's important to raise that how much impact that's going to have when it gets thrown into our budget, what their percentages are. And it really hurt us last year in OPP, and the government did kind of step in last year. We don't know if they're going to step in again and bail us out on an OPP increase. So with that, this is an information report that I'd welcome any comments and on. Greg.
I just
Councillor
wanted to
Getty.
be Terrian. The one date I didn't see, Mayor, is that is the November 17th, is that the equivalent of what was our special budget meeting that we would have in December? Okay. Okay. The other was that, and I'm glad you acknowledged, because I thought if people are hoping that Councillor Getty is going to affect the trade negotiations between the Ontario Provincial Police, the provincial government, and the Solicitor General, and have any impact on it, you may as well impeach me now, because it's not going to happen. But we will. What I do think, and again for DSAB and for EMS, but I think it may give us a message to send back up the chain of command to say that there has to be some consideration in regards to these, whether they amortize it over a period of time. You know, there may be reasons why they need substantial increases, but it has to be spread out. The other for staff, and you may already be doing it. You have an idea of, traditionally you'd give us you'd come to us and we'd give somewhat of a target. If we're not doing that, we'll see where this goes. But I think that it's important that as you prepare your budget with those numbers, just the fact that we are now going to take the external levies out and just present really two budgets, one that we have control over, one that we don't have control over. The reality is that our ratepayers still have to pay that. And I think it's important that as those numbers are prepared, that either maybe a 5-year average of what those user fees were relative to DSAB, OPP, and EMS are considered, because they do fluctuate. They don't fluctuate down. It's just how much they fluctuate up. But I think it at least gives us an idea, gives a benchmark, so that when it comes forward, we can, as a council and you as staff, can say, okay, this is in a ballpark, this is where we think it's going to impact our residents, as opposed to, I wouldn't want to just put that off because it's the easy thing to do and just, articulate what we can control. I think that's unfair if we do that.
Yeah, I think it's important. The ratepayer, the taxpayer, has one wallet, and they have to pay both halves of that. So it's a communication challenge, really, of how we communicate it. And at one point, it's going to have to get together, because that's the tax bill they're going to get. Councillor Basinski.
Just a couple of questions. One, I guess in the report, it talked about background and analysis, and one of the bullet points, the second last one, said the 2022 asset management plan recommended a tax rate increase of at least 1.5% per year to accommodate the infrastructure funding gap. And I was just going to mention, council's already put a reserve. Okay, so this is just, it is. Okay.
This is
so-
the same 1.5%.
I thought this might be a new one, but
Nope.
that's great. Okay, fantastic. Then the only other thing, there was a comment made on the taxes that there was a differing level between seasonal and permanent. That was, now I know I heard it, but if that's not the case, because my understanding is, it's the mill rate times your assessed value. Is that, that's what we're.
There's no difference, Michelle, help me here, but
Or water
there is a difference, and that's in hydro. And so people might have been referring to that. A seasonal resident pays a different hydro rate than a permanent resident on waterfront. But Michelle, we don't tax permanent and seasonal differently, do we?
No, we have one residential tax rate, and that's for all properties. But what we do have, and what I did identify last year, is we do have different averages. So the average of waterfront property is higher than the average of non-waterfront property. And that was identified in the tax rate calculation last year.
Okay, but we all pay the same mill rate times the assessed value.
That's correct, yes.
Any other questions? I'm going to ask Michelle, you had a question? I was gonna ask Michelle to take everybody through the chart on 328. Okay. Over to you, Michelle.
Okay.
We're all learning
so-
here.
So there's a couple things that you have to remember. This timing applies only to the strong mayor budget. So the first budget that you're going to receive in September or October, sorry, is going to be a staff recommended budget. Once you have your input and the changes, whatever it is that happens, on November 17th is when you will receive your strong mayor's budget. And that's when these timelines kick in. So once that budget has been tabled to council and provided to the public within 30 days, and actually that 30 days can be reduced by resolution of council, council can propose amendments. Council cannot propose amendments, but they can do it within that 30 days. And then after the 30 days, we have the 10-day period where the head of council can veto those council amendments or accept those council amendments. Then we have another 15-day period where council, which council again can shorten by resolution, council can override all of those vetoes with a 2/3 majority vote, which would then bring us to a final budget. And a final budget is actually not going to be presented to council. At the end of this 30, 10, and 15-day period, the budget is deemed accepted. There's no voting on it. It's just deemed adopted by council.
Does anybody have any questions? Our staff have been studying this nonstop since they said strong mayors. Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle, so I'm just looking at the schedule here. So you've got some things in the capital. Oh God, where did they? There's one. Oh, here it is. Page 101, the budget assumption. So you've got, some major capital projects already in there that's contemplated, right? Where does, at what point in time does it start to fill out as far as, what are we gonna spend on capital projects on the roads and, things that we just discussed with Hempson? Who does that? Does staff do that and then it's presented, or?
That's correct. That will be part of the October 20th budget, the staff
Okay.
recommended budget that's brought to council.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and after the 20th, when and the 20th, you're going to see the whole thing from staff. And that's the period between then and October 31st is when we are encouraging you to potentially meet with staff if you've got questions, but also to put your comments in writing for by at least the 31st of October, at which point staff will assess those comments. That's a critical period, that 20th to the 31st of October. That's your opportunity to meet with staff, talk to them, say, I have a concern or I support or whatever on the 31st. And then between the 31st and the 17th of November, council or staff massages the budget to bring back what's it called? It's not called
The strong mayor's budget.
It's called. Councillor Gaddy.
So I take it then we have between October 20th and October 31st to fight it out, for lack of a better term, to get, but it doesn't seem that we're going to have an opportunity to be doing that in public for the community to see. We're being asked to, we're being asked to send emails to staff or have meetings with staff. We're not, and I know that the intent isn't that, but it appears to me that we're moving the budget process away from public observation.
don't think that's the intent because your input will be public on the 31st. And how staff recommends to handle each of the comments will be discussed on the 31st of October in public at council.
So and let's say we have item A, item B, and item C, and everybody's in agreement for item A, and we talk about it and no problem. Item B, we're not in agreement and we have a split on council here. Will we be voting on that at that time? And then, because it doesn't show that.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. If there's a comment, say, call it buying a new truck, for example, and it doesn't pass the majority of council, that will be in public at the council meeting on the 31st. No? Oh, Craig says no.
No. No, there is no council meeting on the 31st.
Oh.
The budget will be presented, the staff budget complete will be presented to council on October 20th. Between the 20th and the 31st is when council members should identify things they have questions about, things that are possibly missing from the budget, things that are in the budget that they don't want in the budget. As part of the strong mayor's powers, that then goes to the mayor to decide whether she wants it in the budget or not in the budget. And that's the budget that's brought on November 17th. And if the budget that's brought on November 17th does not include something that a council member wants or includes something that a council member does not want, that's when you use that 30 days to propose amendments.
And sorry, just to add, Michelle, those amendments are at a council meeting.
Yes,
They have to be done by resolution of council.
that's my understanding, yes.
Goes down into the purple part of the chart.
Yes.
So, and I'll use a hypothetical. So staff recommend hiring 2 new positions. Everybody looks at it, everybody's comfortable with one, and there's a split on the second, which happens here in the years that I've been on council. At what point do we have that discussion in public?
So you would put that in writing between October 20th and October 31st. That's then presented to the mayor. And if the mayor says, you know what, I agree with that, take out the one position, she takes the one position out, and that's what comes back to council on November 17th. If she says, no, I want both positions, she leaves it in, it comes to council November 17th, and then in the 30 days after that is when council would then propose taking the one position out.
Okay, and I know that the intent is not to do it. My just by the timelines and what I'm seeing, that's my concern. So really, and I'm asking you, Michelle, then between when we get this draft on October 20th, we go through it line by line and say, yes, we approve, no, we don't approve, and for whatever reason, we don't approve that, or just red line, green line, for lack of a better term.
If that's the way you want to approach it, other council members may say the budget's fine. It's really how you're comfortable with reviewing that October 20th staff recommended budget. And I want to just point out that the reason we're calling it a staff recommended budget is because the ministry has advised us that any budget that comes to council, unless it's specifically identified as a staff recommended budget, becomes a strong mayor budget. And it triggers the timelines. So that's why we have to be very careful about what we call these budgets.
And
The CAO is going to weigh in here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're all trying to work within legislation that is unique, and I'm trying to be very polite about it. It is very unique. It is very challenging. It is very non-democratic. It's a bunch of things that, well, you've all expressed your position on this legislation when it was introduced. The mayor has a very unique and role in this process. Our conversations thus far have been one of collaboration and how do we work together to make sure that this council still gets its say. We have a unique timeline because of the legislation. Again, it's very rapid, it's very direct, it's very confusing. However, that period from October 20th when it's presented, now keep in mind, you get the agenda the week before, so you'll have the better part of, the better part of a couple of, I don't have the exact dates in front of me, but you'll have several weeks to review that in fine detail as a council. With submission of questions, comments, areas of concern, add this, take that out, all in that little window. I would suggest that if you have priorities that you as members of council are very interested in now, let us know. Because our staff are working on developing the budget and have been for the last several months. But if you have specific priorities or specific things that you don't want to see come forward, flag it for us now so that we can work on it and we could consult with the mayor. Because again, we have to consult with the mayor here. The other thing is Mayor McDermott's been very good about coming in and sitting down and saying, what do we do next? And what I would suggest is that we're going to have a summary of comments at the end of the day on the 31st. We have a meeting, that's a Friday. We have a meeting the next Monday. There's no reason that the mayor couldn't come in and say, here's a summary of all the comments, and we can have a discussion and a debate if need be amongst members of council on November the 3rd. Now, Michelle has work to do. We all have work to do to prep and develop that final package for the mayor to present on the 17th of November. But there's a bit of wiggle room in there for us to be able to say, listen, if the mayor chooses to bring it forward, which I'm confident she would, because anything we've advised her to do so far, she has. Thank you, Anne. To be able to bring a report in or a summary of the budget inquiries and budget asks on November the 3rd and have the discussion here in public forum. I think that's what you were getting at, Councillor Getty, is where and when do we get to hear I want that staff, I don't want that staff, or I want that truck, or I don't want that truck. We would be able to have those discussions in a public session on November the 3rd, I think. Yeah. Without it being a presentation of a budget, which triggers strong mayor timelines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And please understand, I know everybody's working through it. I just think looking at it from the community side of it, I want to make sure that they don't think we're doing anything behind closed doors.
And I will say that this legislation is written in a way that does exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. It is intended to be non-consultative, non-democratic, and very individualized by the mayor. Okay. What I think this community and this council and this staff is very fortunate to have a mayor who's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a way to work within the legislation to make this as consultative and collaborative as we possibly can.
And that frankly is part of the reason I'm bringing up strong mayors at the lake associations, to just say, you got to understand that we as a council, including me, did not support this legislation and requested to be left out of it, but it's forced upon us. So I think it is important for all of you, if people say, what's this strong mayor stuff? Say it undermines democracy. Councillor Adams.
I just want to say, I think we got to go through it. I think we got to go through it once to understand it. I know a lot of the constituents are saying that it takes their vote away, which it kind of does. So I think once we go through it, because every other year since I've been here, it seems to be a pretty smooth process. There hasn't been any fists or anything. So I think we just have to go through it and then we'll know then.
And
it's a new process.
I think the uniqueness of where we are here in the term of council cycle is that while we get to go through it this time, it's an entirely different process again next year because it's an election year. And then we can come back to the process that we're in this year after that. So as much as it's go through it, I agree, we got to get through this one. Then we got to get through it again next year when it's a whole different process because of an election period. And then we can get back to this. So again, the legislation is the legislation. We're trying to work within it. And make sure that we don't violate any rules that are set out for us, but still find the best way to support the mayor and support council, and by default, support the constituents that ultimately pay the bill.
And I think it's really important to point out, you've got the schedule here, but there is a November 3rd council meeting, which Jason brought up, which can be a place to chat about the stuff, because the Friday, the 31st, and then the Monday, we can say if there's some big disagreement, we can talk about it at council. But staff has some deadlines and stuff they've got to work through to create everything in that timeline. So bear with us. Go.
The one thing I've been meaning to say, what you'll notice that's absent from the process and from the report is the consultation with the finance committee. And I did want to share that since the time that this report was written, we've had the opportunity to meet and discuss, and the finance committee is going to continue to do the work that they've done over the last number of years. They will prepare a report that says, here's our key highlights as recommendations. Here's what we suggest as a target, whatever the case might be, whatever it is they want to bring forward. And they will bring that forward to the mayor, and then the mayor, I'm confident, will share it with all the council at that point.
Okay, thank you. This was only for information, but bear with us. And I really, truly appreciate the consultation that I've had from staff, because I wouldn't have figured this out, and it will be a collaborative effort as best we can. So council reports, Mr. Adams.
Actually, it's been pretty quiet for me. I've had a couple of constituents who had some issues, and we're still working on them. And I did attend the what was it called today?
But the Park and Rec open house, open house.
Open house, yeah, and that's all I have.
Councilor Bazinski?
Yes, I attended the Salmon Lake Ratepayers Association meeting last weekend, or the weekend before this long weekend. It was a good meeting, fairly good attendance. They had a compliment for the transfer station that the Salmon Lake residents use. They said it's being well maintained. So that's a positive for our Director of Public Works. Number of people had issues with the road, and I drove the road, and what I found was that there were a few sections which there must be some underlying problem, because there's more patching than there is actual asphalt road surface. But that's only in a few locations, and it appears to me that that had happened in other locations, but they were obviously rectified, and I believe it was Fowler that did the work there. And it was a good job, because it hasn't come back. So, you know, that I think I mentioned earlier, that was just, and some people said they like it because it slows traffic down, whereas others would like it to be a little bit smoother. Other than that, I had an email from a resident who has a problem with light pollution. There was in Goddard Crescent on Otter Lake, there are two cottages that are side by side, and they have a boardwalk, and they lit the whole boardwalk up. It's right at the shoreline, and they lit their stairways going up to their cottages, and this continues on overnight. So the mayor has suggested, and I fully support, looking at a bylaw with respect to this, because there are bylaws in many adjacent municipalities, and we don't have one to enforce. So I'd suggest that be something that is brought forward. Other than that, it's been fairly steady, people just talking, but no serious other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Getty?
Had a police services board meeting, where they did pass their budget. I believe the report was sent through to Craig and to Jason. I attended the naming of Standing Peoples Road with the mayor. Lake Joseph North Association meeting took place on Saturday morning. The Rosso Classic Cruise Car Show was a big success on Saturday. The weather was spectacular. There was 127 cars in from all over the province. I'd like to thank Tony and Bev Hockrig, who have been running this event for a long time, and it is one of the premier events that goes on down at the waterfront through the summer. So thank you very much to them. I attended the Park and Rec Master Plan meeting today, and I spent time on the weekend at the transfer sites in Ward 3, handing out the flyers for the special meet or the information session on the 14th of August. And as I talked about it earlier, I think it is probably the number one thing where we should be getting public input and considering it when decisions are made. Thank you.
Just a quick question on clarification. The budget that got sent to Craig, is that 2026 budget?
I believe there should have been correspondence coming in relative to the cost, the budget for the budget for the police services board, our portion of the police services board.
For the board, not the OPP.
Not the OPP, just for the board and the insurance and the operating costs that associated to it. Sorry.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. We had an interesting couple of weeks. I was at as well the North Lake Joe annual meeting with the mayor and Councillor Getty on Saturday. It was a very good meeting, I thought. As I said earlier in the meeting, I've had, interestingly enough, in the last couple of weeks, I've had a lot of people approach me about the condition of the transfer stations and people not using them properly and all the good stuff that we know happens. So, but it just seems to be getting more and more prevalent. The other thing that has occupied a good part of my time the last 2 weeks is to calm my general neighborhood down. And I'm looking very forward to seeing the cottage rental licensing brought forward, and I think it's some special attention is going to have to be taken to the bigger lakes, where some of these cottage rentals are really quite interesting, I guess. We're in a small bay at the bottom of it. We have a rental going on one side of us on 300 feet and a rental going on the other side of us at 300 feet. And between the two of them, they have 60 people there. Eight jet skis or whatever those things are, a pontoon boat, 2 wakeboard boats, and a $150,000 water amusement park. So it's been kind of interesting talking to the rest of the residents. And I mean, these are very, very high-end rentals. They're managed by professional rental companies. The people that are renting them to have fun. But I question whether 300 feet of lakeshore frontage can support 440 people. So I think that if we're going to look at the licensing, we need to have a in-depth look at it, and we can't regard the township as all the same, because there's different sorts of rentals going on. And I agree totally with the traditional rentals that, that the owners, have been doing for 30, 40 years on all the lakes. I mean, but I mean, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a lot of revenue. It's and it's a very big impact to the people that live around them. And I'm thinking that, it's been bandied around, oh, we gotta set occupancy on septic systems, we gotta set occupancy on number of bedrooms. Well, I mean, you know,
We need to,
so we
can't-
need to move on,
Yeah.
but anyhow, that's, I think, the time is right. Thank you.
Ted, Counselor Collins?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make mine short and sweet. I've been taking care of Ward 5 concerns and road concerns and potholes. One of my lakes, Lake Manitowaba, was there's an incident out there that I really can't get into, but the OPP closed it right down. Entry into the South Seguin States Road. And other than that, I've had, the District of Perry's Municipal Association meeting in Magneta 1 was canceled. Linda's husband passed away. Yep. So that was the reason for that. And, that and also the weather. It was, remember that that was the day. That was the day as well. So I'll let everybody know when the next meeting is set, and I'll come back with information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other than strong mayors, I've been to some really easy events. So I was at the Blessing of Standing People's Road in Amick Drive. It was really well attended. Greg came with some kids. Brian Bites was there with his whole family. So it was really nice. July 24th, I did answer phones for a couple hours for the Moose Radiothon for the hospital and tried to challenge all the other elected officials to match by donation. July 25th was the 25th anniversary of the Rosso Market, and it was quite a celebration. We had bagpipers, an enormous cake, and it was the busiest I've ever seen the market that specific day, and they had games for kids and everything. So it was a celebration, not only of the market, but of Linus Roya, whose idea it was 25 years ago. It's quite amazing. And then on the 26th was the East Georgian Bay Art Tour that we as a council gave $200 to for marketing. And we saw some pretty impressive art, as a matter of fact. It was in various people's homes and studios throughout Georgian Bay, but it was a really hot day. And that same day was the social gathering for Little Lake Joe, and they had more people than they've ever had, and was quite refreshing actually to see there were all kinds of little tiny people around, like little wee ones, which means that the next generation is coming into the lake and bringing their kids. So I think the executive of Little Lake Joe is hoping that some of these young people will step into volunteer roles. We've mentioned the Lake Joe North AGM that we were at Gordon Bay. It was very well attended, always is. The classic car show was great. Hot again. But amazing selection of cars dating back to 1913 to some that looked like they came from outer space. And then this afternoon was the open house for parks and recreation. So it's busy. The lakes, the roads, everything's busy. There are lots of people around right now. So it's nice to see it busy. So oh, sorry, you have a report too. You're not council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our official plan process continues to advance, and if you were unable to attend the recent open house at the events, the presentation from MHBC and the draft official plan documents are available for review at letsconnectseguin.ca, and comments can be shared to planning@seguin.ca. The Rosso Memorial Hall restoration project continues as outlined in the master plan shared with the community and council in 2024. ERA Architects are hosting an open house this Friday, August the 8th from 1 to 3 p.m. to inform next steps for restoring the building. Refreshments will be provided and all are welcome. And as discussed earlier this afternoon, Public Works is hosting a public information center at the Humphrey Community Center from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, August 14th, to discuss solutions to improve service and standards at Seguin transfer stations. The presentation and interactive component will be available online for those unable to attend in person. Again, visit letsconnectseguin.ca or Facebook for registration details. The Seguin Public Library is still accepting donations for their annual book, bake, and yard sale, which will be held this Saturday from 8 a.m. until noon at the Humphrey Branch. All items should be clean and in good condition. Donations are accepted only during Humphrey Branch hours. And last but certainly not least, the township is launching a seniors engagement survey in the coming weeks. Survey results will help staff design programs and initiatives that reflect our community's preferences. The survey will be available online at letsconnectseguin.ca. Paper copies will be available at the municipal office and at all Seguin Public Library branches. Thank you, Your Worship.
Oops, sorry. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the correspondence as presented on the agenda for August 5th, 2025 meeting of council. Can I have a mover, please? One second. Thank you. All in favor? And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 5:10 p.m. in order to address matters pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land and information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality. Can I have a mover? Greg? Ken? All in favor? Okay, it should be a very short. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of Seguin, Township of Seguin does hereby rise from the closed session and declare the regular meeting reconvened at 5:20 p.m. I need a mover. Terry. All in favor? And this is the motion for the property. I have a motion that bylaw number 2025-065, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement of purchase and sale between Seguin and Muskoka Lakes for all of PIN 52199-0327, being part of Lot 24 Concession A, Humphrey, as in RO 80796 STHU 1804 Seguin, which is 1028 Highway 141, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Mario and Ken. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2025-061, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Ken and Mario. All in favor? And I have one more. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this meeting at 5:22 p.m. to meet again on Tuesday, September 2nd, or at the call of the mayor. Ken and Ted, all in favor? Happy Labor Day, everybody. Summer's half over.